2 years ago, the Detroit Pistons lost 28 games in a row, dead last in the NBA. And Cade Cunningham, their number one pick, was right in the middle of it. Now, he's in MVP conversations. This shouldn't have happened. For over a decade, this franchise couldn't win. No playoffs, no direction, and people were already calling Cade's numbers empty. But now, he's averaging over 25 and leading the top team in the East. So what actually flipped? Here's how it started. Before everything went wrong, one thing was always true. Cade Cunningham was the best player in every room he walked into. In high school at Montverde Academy in Florida, Cade didn't just play on a great team. He led one. Perfect 25-0 season. McDonald's All-American. The consensus #1 recruit in the entire country. Coaches, scouts, analysts, everyone agreed. This kid was different. But it wasn't just the talent. It was the winning instinct. At Oklahoma State, a program that hadn't been relevant in years, he nearly turned everything around on his own. Won Big 12 Player of the Year as a freshman. Led them to the NCAA tournament. Added a gold medal at the FIBA Under-19 World Cup. Everywhere he went, he won. So when Detroit took him first overall in 2021, nobody was surprised. This was the pick, the guy built for this moment, and early on, he looked exactly like it. His rookie season, he put up numbers that had people comparing him to LeBron James and Oscar Robertson at the same age. Only the 10th player in NBA history to hit those benchmarks as a rookie. He won Rising Stars MVP, made the All-Rookie First Team. And in March of 2022, he put up a month that the league hadn't seen from a rookie since Michael Jordan. The talent was never the question. It was never even close to being the question. But here's where it gets complicated. The wins weren't coming. Detroit finished 23-59 in his rookie year. And even with everything Cade was doing individually, the whispers started. Can he actually carry a team, or is he just a great player on a bad franchise, piling up stats that don't matter? That question would follow him for the next 2 years. And the answer, when it finally came, would silence an entire league. So the talent was real from day one. But talent alone wasn't enough. And what happened next didn't just test Cade. It tested whether this rebuild had any future at all. Nobody likes this part of the story, but this is where everything changed. Detroit hadn't won a playoff game since 2008. Let that sink in. 17 years. Missed the playoffs almost every season since 2010. Draft picks, coaching changes, rebuilds within rebuilds. None of it worked. The franchise was stuck. And when Cade got injured in year 2, a stress fracture in his left shin on November 9th, 2022, the whole thing stalled again. Surgery, rehab, an entire season gone. He came back for 2023-24 healthy, ready. Detroit started 2-3. Rough, but survivable. But then they just kept losing. What followed was the most historically embarrassing stretch in NBA history. 28 consecutive losses. Not spread across 2 seasons, not split between rosters. All in 1 year. The longest single-season losing streak the league had ever recorded. And through all 28 of them, Cade showed up. He dropped 43 points in a loss, 41 in another. Had multiple 30-point performances that meant absolutely nothing in the standings. He was averaging nearly 8 assists during the streak, creating chances and setting teammates up. But the wins just wouldn't come. The team around him couldn't convert. Night after night, brilliance and defeat in the exact same game. December 28, 2023, Boston Celtics. Cade put up 31 points and 9 assists. Detroit led by 19 at halftime. They lost in overtime. Loss number 28. The all-time record tied. Cade later said he never imagined something like this was possible. He thought he was too good for it to happen to him. That quote tells you everything because it wasn't arrogance. It was a guy who had won his whole life, suddenly realizing that individual greatness has a ceiling when the foundation underneath you is broken. Detroit finished 14-68, worst record in the NBA. Monty Williams, who had just signed a $78.5 million coaching contract months earlier, was fired after 1 season. And Cade, the #1 pick, became the face of the most losing franchise in basketball. Therefore, the narrative around him hardened. Empty stats, can't lead a winning team, Great player, wrong situation, and maybe just not a winner. That was the consensus. That was what the league believed. They were wrong. 14 wins, dead last, a franchise in pieces. Most players don't come back from that. But the summer of 2024 is where Cade stopped surviving the situation and started taking control of it. Two things happened that summer that flipped everything. Detroit hired J.B. Bickerstaff as head coach. New system, new culture, new standard. No more making excuses for losing. A complete reset from the ground up. And they handed Cade a 5-year, $224 million contract extension. The Pistons were betting the entire future of the franchise on one player after the worst season in franchise history. But the biggest bet of all was the one Cade made on himself. He showed up to training camp leaner, stronger, and more locked in than anyone had seen him. The 28-game streak didn't leave him broken. It left him with something to prove. And that version of Cade, motivated, healthy, and playing for something real, was a completely different problem from the rest of the league. He averaged 26.1 points, 9.1 assists, and 6.1 rebounds. The first Piston since Jerry Stackhouse in 2001 to average more than 25 points per game. 9 triple-doubles, more than his entire career combined before that season. Career high efficiency across the board. A clean 2-to-1 assist-to-turnover ratio. 70 games played, no setbacks, just consistent nightly dominance. Detroit went from 14 wins to 44, a 30-game improvement, one of the biggest single-year turnarounds in NBA history. They made the playoffs for the first time since 2019. And in Game 2 against the Knicks, Cade dropped 33 points and 12 rebounds, snapping the franchise's 15-game playoff losing streak. Detroit's first playoff win since 2008. In Game 4, he went for 25 points, 10 rebounds, and 10 assists. A playoff triple-double. Only the third in Pistons franchise history. First All-Star selection. First All-NBA team. That All-NBA nod triggered the Derrick Rose rule. His $224 million deal jumped to $269 million. An extra $45 million because Cade proved, on the biggest stage, that he was elite. In an anonymous NBA player poll, his peers voted him the most underrated player in the entire league. The guys guarding him every night knew the truth before anyone else did. Last season was proof. This season? This is something else entirely, because what Cade is doing right now isn't just winning, it's historic. October and November 2025, Eastern Conference Player of the Month. First time in his career. The Pistons opened 16-4, best record in the East. They rip off a 13-game winning streak. 2 years after losing 28 straight, they're the hottest team in basketball. Then comes November 10th, 2025, Washington Wizards game. Overtime. Cade finishes with 46 points, 12 rebounds, 11 assists, 5 steals, 2 blocks. That stat line has never been recorded in NBA history. Not by LeBron, not by Jordan, not by Magic, Bird, or even Kobe. Not by anyone. Cade Cunningham became the first player ever to post 45-plus points, 10-plus rebounds, 10-plus assists, and 5-plus steals in a single game. History, written in Detroit. Right now, as of February 27, 2026, he's averaging over 25 points per game, leading the entire NBA in assists with 9.6 per night, and adding 5.6 rebounds. The Pistons are 43-14, number 1 in the Eastern Conference. Last night, they went on the road to Oklahoma City, the best team in the entire NBA, at 45-15, and won 124-116. He's a starter in the 2026 All-Star Game, a legitimate top 5 MVP candidate, and Draymond Green, one of the most respected voices in the sport, said it plainly. He's as special of a player as we have in the league today. Think about what that means coming from Draymond. That's not media hype. That's a peer evaluation from someone who has competed for championships his entire career. When players who guard the best every single night start talking about you like that, you've arrived somewhere real. So, a guy who survived the worst losing streak in NBA history, stayed the course when an entire league doubted him, and then came back and built the number 1 team in the East around his will. That's not a glow-up. That's not a breakout. That's a takeover. And the scariest part? Cade Cunningham is 24 years old. This isn't his peak. This is just the beginning of his prime.